Hello everybody, welcome back to the United Stand. Happy Tuesday. Michael Carrick, should he be considered for the permanent manager job? Look, this channel is all about difference of opinions, and that's what makes it so amazing. The community has a difference of opinions, the people on it have a difference of opinions, and Gorbage has been speaking a lot about how we've got to be careful about Michael Carrick. I want to give you a little bit of a different angle today. I think Michael Carrick should absolutely be considered for the full-time managerial job. I'm not saying whip out a 5-year contract and chain him to Old Trafford for the rest of his life, but what I am saying is what he's doing currently at Manchester United, you cannot ignore. If you look at where this team was to the results we're getting now, and we are in a results-based business, you seriously have to look at Michael Carrick as a serious contender. And anyone who isn't, out after 16 out of 18 points, come on. Let's give your head a little wobble. I mean, the points that we are getting from Michael Carrick as manager is extremely good. Like the way that we are in top 4 now with a 3-point gap, and we could even make that gap even bigger come the weekend, which we expect to do at Old Trafford. I think Michael Carrick is putting himself forward as a serious candidate for the permanent job. I'm not saying give it him in February. I'm absolutely not. I'm not saying hand him the contract now, but I do think he massively enters into that race to become a permanent manager of Manchester United. So I want to talk about it. I want to discuss it. I want to have a healthy debate. I've got a poll running in the chat. Should Carrick be permanent manager? And then you've got another option to say other. And then if you do think other, tell me who. Because I keep seeing people say, you need a big manager. We need a big manager to come into Manchester United. And I absolutely was firmly on that train. However, the big managers that I want, I don't think we're going to go and get. Unai Emery, I don't think Manchester United will go near him because of the control that he demands. Enrique, there's literally been barely any links to him. I don't think Ineos want to go near him because of the control he demands as well. And yes, you can argue that the club ownership maybe should take a different stance on that, but there's been very loose links to Enrique, if not any, and Ben Jacobs has shut it down on near enough every show that we've had. I'll ask him again about it on Thursday, so stay tuned for that, Thursday at 2 p.m. But there's barely been anything in the Enrique rumours. And then Thomas Tuchel has signed himself to England until 2028, so that kind of goes off the cards, because if he was serious about taking the Manchester United job, I don't think he would have signed that contract. Ancelotti doesn't want the job. He's going to stay as the Brazil coach. Most of the big names are gone. So who is a big name that's going to be able to come in and manage Manchester United? Nagelsmann, I can see the arguments, the connection with Vavell, but it still is risky. It absolutely is risky. You've got a manager here that knows the club inside out, has respect off the dressing room, has respect off the players, and he's doing a really good job. And look, he's got an advantage in this fact that he's got a time period to prove why he should have the job. And so far, I think he's passing with flying colours. Of course, no manager's going to be perfect, and you do have to call out some of the red flags and the warning signs. Breaking down a low block, I think Michael Carrick will need to be better, and we'll need to get players to do that come the summer, and that comes with backing him. And I think the midfield and having players who can drive out the midfield and create them passes to break the lines is extremely important. So you've got to back Michael Carrick, and he's got to get better at that. However, he's making the right substitutions, he's making the right tactical tweaks. In game, he changed it really well in that Everton game to get Sesko on, and we earned 3 points out of that through the Sesko winning goal. And you can talk about the fact when Ollie came in, he did a really good job, and sometimes the interim period is, a lot of positivity, and it can sort of give you false hope. But I don't think you can compare every single manager in the future to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer because of that interim period. We also had an interim manager in Ralph Rangnick who I thought had a really good footballing brain, and I actually think should have gone to be amongst the recruitment team and potentially director of football. It didn't end up happening, but didn't necessarily get the best results. So, it swings and roundabouts. Every individual is different. So get in the comments what you think. Like I said, I'm not saying sign Michael Carrick up on a 5-year deal. I'm not saying that at all. But if it continues to go well from now until the end of the season, if we keep getting results, then what is the harm in coming together and saying, Michael, we really like what you've been doing and we want to see if it can work on a permanent basis. Let's put pen to paper on 12 to 24 months together and let's see how we go. Like, you don't have to commit to massive amounts of Carrick's future and United's future to Michael Carrick. It's about having that conversation, because come the summer, there is no standout candidate right now for me that trumps Carrick apart from Enrique. The only manager that you could say to me currently that outshines Carrick for the Manchester United job would be Luis Enrique. That's the only one, because of what he's done in the game. And for me, I've said multiple times on the show, he ticks every single box. Nagelsmann is a very good shout, and I wouldn't be unhappy with it. I think he's definitely got shouts in there to become permanent manager, and there's a lot to like about Nagelsmann, but it is still a risk. And then other managers have been linked to. Glasner, no thanks after what's happened at Crystal Palace recently. Iraola, very good coach, but it's a big step up from Bournemouth to Manchester United, and I don't know if I'd want to take that risk when Michael Carrick is already doing a fantastic job. I mean, it's an interesting one. Get your comments in, let us know. Pochettino, I wouldn't take over Michael Carrick currently. I wouldn't. Michael Carrick has put together a really good case. He can get the best out of what he's got, but also he isn't a yes man, despite what people might think. He isn't a yes man. He will, have a good eye for, players coming in the summer. He knows already what this squad's strengths and weaknesses are. It's an interesting debate. Get your comments in and let us know. Someone just said in the chat, you don't give a 12-month contract. No, you usually don't give a 12-month contract. But I have a feeling Carrick would take it if we put it on the table. I think it'd probably be a 2-year deal. I think it probably would be a 2-year deal. But if you did want to negotiate a 12-month contract, a very well-paid 12-month contract, I think there would be definite considerations from Michael Carrick. I think he'd fancy himself for a year in the job to really impress and further that forward. Emily Derry says, at this point, anyone is a risk, especially with the hierarchy above this manager. I wouldn't be saying Carrick at the wheel. Interview him along with other candidates. His ideas may have changed. Yeah, definitely putting forward for an interview. I think Emily Derry always speaks a lot of sense in the super chat, so thank you for that, Emily. We've also got links to Diomande to talk about, some more updates from Mike McGrath about the Diomande transfer race. I am in favour of getting Diomande in as our left winger. I've watched quite a bit of him now. I really like the look of him. Yes, he's raw. Yes, again, it's another risk. It always is, bringing in a 19-year-old, from the Bundesliga. But he's got a lot to like about his game, and I think he's got the exact attributes that we need. And I think you can afford to bring a young, raw player in when you've got the likes of Cunha and Buemo, Ahmad, who are quite experienced and developed already. So in massive favour of Diomande. We're going to talk about that in a bit as well. And Van der Ven. Manchester United apparently entering the race for Van der Ven. Would you take him? I would absolutely. I think he's a top quality centre-back. How much would the price be? Personally, I think he's going to end up going to Liverpool, but it's an interesting one to talk about for sure, so get your comments in on that. But if you do have a difference of opinion on Michael Carrick, please get it in the comments. Me and Goldbridge had a bit of a back and forth in the group chat. I said to him, let's debate on a show. He said it's not worth his time. So if you guys want to see me and Goldbridge debate Michael Carrick, next time he's live, I think that will be at 8 p.m. tonight. Get onto him and say, debate Beth on Michael Carrick on the United stand. I want to have that debate. We need midfielders, says Stephen Maguire. We absolutely do need midfielders. And I think last night is a shining example. The whole season really is a shining example of what we need to do in the summer. Look, Ineos have had a lot of stick, and a lot of it deservedly so. However, one thing we need to give them credit for is the recruitment of the previous summer transfer window. I think the one before it was hits and misses. This one, so far, things can change quickly in football, but it's looking like 4 out of 4 hits. Senny Lamans, hit. Benjamin Sesko, turn into a hit. Brian Mbeumo, definite hit. Cunha, hit. 4 out of 4. You never usually get in a 100% transfer window, but it's looking like we've done it. And do you know how I know Benjamin Sesko? Well, the eye test. Benjamin Sesko is turning into a quality football player, and you can really see the potential in him. And I agree with what Maud said on the fans forum. I don't even think we've seen 50% of Benjamin Sesko yet. The player that came in compared to the player we saw yesterday, the confidence and the development that he's already had is fantastic. His pace, his height, his physicality, everything is just pointing towards a future star for Manchester United. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but is looking good. Still raw, still a lot of work to do. But the reason I know Benjamin Sesko is looking like a real player as well is because I'm having City fans, I'm having, Everton fans who I know, Chris was on the show counting down to kick off, he texts me, I'm having fans of opposition clubs saying, do you know what? That Sesko's looking good. I fancy him. He looks like a proper decent striker. You've got fans of other clubs telling you that. That's when you know a player's starting to impress. Newcastle fans were doing it. I seen Lewis Bowden, I think it was, a Newcastle fan, I think he does pitch side. He tweeted saying he knows why Eddie Howe wanted Sesko. Like, look at that pace. Walter Maeder's a good player, but he's not got that pace on him. Like, people are looking at Sesko now and thinking, do you know what? He's looking like a bit of a serious signing for Manchester United. That's how you can tell. And I'm hoping Ineos can learn from that summer, because they will. I've said this time and time again. At Manchester United, if you do something right, you will get the credit for it. If you make a good decision, a positive appointment, positive recruitment, you will get praise. As a player, if you have good games, you're the most loved player in the world. Also, if you do something wrong, there's a big spotlight on you because it's Manchester United Football Club. That's what Manchester United is. That's what it's going to be. We're one of the biggest football clubs in the world, the biggest in England. There's always going to be extremisms and there's always going to be the spotlight on you. But they are going to get credit for them 4 signings. Absolutely rightfully so. And to be honest with you, I was absolutely sure on the Mbeumo and Cunha ones, but I had question marks over Sesko and Lamens when they came in. But it shows, you know, trust your scouts sometimes and trust the people you've put in place in them positions. Trust Christopher Vivell, as you would say, on the Benjamin Sesko one. But what I'm hoping we can learn from that summer, and I'm coming back to sort of Cunha and Mbeumo now, in the areas where we massively needed work, which was scoring goals. I mean, I think we scored 44 goals all of last season. Our goal tally was atrocious. Our goal difference was atrocious. We couldn't put the ball in the back of the net last year. We needed to address that problem. We went out and we bought 2 Premier League proven, experienced players who could come in and do the business. And as much as Sesko is coming into his own and he's won critical points for Michael Carrick, the reason he's been allowed to develop into what he's developing into and allowed his confidence to build is because we brought in 2 Premier League proven players with experience in them positions who are ready to go now. The fact that Mbeumo and Cunha have turned up to the party, and Ahmad as well, and Dorgu when he's been playing, Bruno Fernandes always, I mean, I know he can have hits and misses in games. Yesterday wasn't his best game, but you know, you can always rely on him. The reason Benjamin Sesko has been allowed to develop in that way is because we brought in experienced players who can take some of the burden off him. It wasn't all on Sesko to go and score all the goals for us as the number 9. Like, he was allowed to build that confidence. He was allowed to come off the bench in games because we had players who can go and do it. So I need Ineos to learn from that. And this summer, it's critically important that we go and do the same, but in the midfield. We have to go and do the same thing in the midfield. If you emulate that model of going and buying 2 of the best experienced midfielders, you can't lose. You cannot lose in that situation. Of course, it's going to be difficult to replace Casemiro because of everything he brings. He's a complete all-rounder. You know, he's won 5 Champions Leagues for a reason. Of course, it's going to be difficult to emulate that. However, you've got to look at that model. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. Elliot Anderson is a player that massively ticks that box. He is 100% my top option. And I know a lot of people talk about Angelo Stiller of Stuttgart, and I think he's a good option. He's a different player to Anderson. I've not watched loads of him, so I can't speak on it massively. But if I want to hedge my bets, Elliot Anderson is an absolute from me. And I know a lot of people have been talking about Onana from Aston Villa in terms of the aerial presence that Casemiro brings. I don't think it's a bad shout. I don't mind it. They have to emulate that model. Now, Onana, for me, of Aston Villa, doesn't kind of enter the equation for one of the best performing midfielders in the Premier League. I'm going to be honest. Elliot Anderson absolutely does. But I can see why you'd look to Onana because of the sort of Casemiro traits. He's not on Casemiro's level, but the Casemiro traits, I can get why we'd look towards Onana of Aston Villa. So I get that, but I would go down that same route in terms of the recruitment this summer. And the reason we need to do it massively in the midfield is because I think, again, when you're against teams like West Ham, when you're against teams like Everton and the way Everton's set up, and Everton and West Ham did play slightly differently, but when you're in them situations where back against the wall, I think we missed Leachy yesterday in terms of his line-breaking passes, but when you're looking to break down a low block, you need midfielders who can stride through the midfield. You need midfielders who can break the lines with the passing. You need all-action midfielders who can go and win the ball back from you like that. You need a good combination and you need someone who can dictate play from the back. And I just do think that Manchester United, we do need to invest in that midfield area massively. Casemiro is going to be a massive loss. how did we solve the goal scoring solution from last season? We went and brought Mbeumo, Cunha and Sesko. All have been critically important this season. How do you address the midfield problem? You go and do the same thing again. Go and buy 2 experienced midfielders who can make a difference right now, and then maybe go and buy not the same money as Sesko was, because Sesko was touching on 70 million, but go and buy maybe a young player with a lot to learn and who needs time to develop, who can be something for the future. Arguably we need 3. Go and do that same model for the midfield that you did for the forward line in the summer. That's what I would be saying. Gonzalez says, don't bring a Nana near United. That's nonsense. To be fair, the name Onana sort of gives me the chills a little bit. So, I mean, maybe it would give some people PTSD. He wouldn't be one of my top options. I don't mind it because of the aerial presence. But for me, Elliot Anderson is an absolute no-brainer. You have to go and get him. When you're looking towards the other midfielder, I don't know. Get in the comments who you would go for. Jordan sort of brought me back to Baleba yesterday, because, I mean, Baleba's been poor all season, but Jordan was convincing me, saying you don't just become poor overnight, and he was an absolute baller last season. If United can get him for a good price, you could have a baller on your hands, and he was sort of bringing me back round to the idea. Anderson is an absolute nailed on for me. We have to go for him. It's going to be difficult with City, but this is one we can't afford to lose out on. Get in the comments who would be the other midfielder that you go for. Do you know who I absolutely massively rate in the Premier League? Kamara of Aston Villa. I think Kamara is a top midfielder. I liked him before he went to Aston Villa, but at Aston Villa I think he's been brilliant. We've not been linked to him at all, and I don't know if he'd be somebody that Manchester United would go out there and go for, and there'd be discussions whether he'd be the right fit, but he's, I think, a massively underrated midfielder in the Premier League when you're looking at that CDM sort of figure. But get your comments in and let us know what you think. We've got some more super chats coming in. Navan2 says, if we spend 100 million on a centre-back, I want Bastoni from Inter. Bastoni is absolutely incredible, but I don't see him leaving Italy. I really don't. Just Pivot says, when Amorim got sacked, we all agreed we needed an elite manager. Now we're considering a manager whose biggest achievement is almost getting promoted. This is an interim manager bounce, and that is all. I don't think you can ignore 16 out of 18 points. I don't think you can ignore unbeaten in his last time around and then unbeaten again. The loss is going to come inevitably, but sometimes you've got to grind out results. Not every manager is going to be absolutely perfect. And what I can tell you is Carrick ticks a lot of boxes. I agree that, new manager bounce, interim manager bounce can be deceiving. And I agree that breaking down low blocks does seem to be a little bit of a struggle, something that would need to be addressed. But I think you can bring in players in the summer to help address that in terms of their styles and way of playing. Players who are really good on the ball, squeezing their balls through the lines, opening up defences in that sort of aspects. But also, he ticks, you're forgetting about all the box he ticks. Like, people are so quick to focus on the negatives. Breaking down a low block is one that clearly needs work. I get that. But think about all the positives. The squad clearly massively respect him. And he's getting the best out of the squad. He's getting the best out of what he's got. Manchester United, if you look at them on paper, 16 out of 18 points, that squad on paper probably shouldn't be getting that. We're absolutely better than what we've seen previously. But I think he's sort of overperforming currently in terms of points of what you would expect Manchester United to get in our current situation. He's got the temperature just right. He's authoritative. He commands respect. I think his coaching staff is, looks like they're working together really well. Players have improved. Lenny Yoro looked brilliant when in his sort of development. I know it wasn't a game to massively write home about, but he did a solid job yesterday against Everton with Maguire next to him. I think Dallow's excelled back in his natural position. I think the way that he's, got Kobbie Mainoo playing with Casemiro, people had an off game yesterday, but it's been great. Bruno's back in his natural position. I know it's not rocket science, but I think multiple areas Carrick has got it right. I think he's got the temperature right. I think his authority is clear to see. I think a lot of things he's got right. And when you win 16 out of 18 points, when you've got the team playing good football in a lot of ways, in most of the games. You've got to consider that. Every game we've played good football in, apart from the Everton and the West Ham game. And even in the West Ham game, it wasn't bad. The Everton game was the worst performance under Carrick, and we won. The Everton game was the worst performance under Carrick, and we won. So I think we can address the issue is the low block. It's something that Carrick has to overcome. But with the points that he's got from that, he's got 4 points out of 6 from an area that people don't think he's good at, which is a low block. So 4 points from 6 from an area that is Carrick's biggest weakness. It's not too shabby, I don't think. It's an area we have to work on, absolutely. But, I mean, even Sesko, like the way he's built Sesko's confidence up and the goals that he's getting out of Sesko. I mean, just to speak on Sesko a little bit here. Also with Michael Carrick, 6 games, three clean sheets. I mean, you just love to see it. 6 games and 3 clean sheets. It's brilliant. A lot of people have to take credit for that, not just Carrick. You know, Senny Lamans has been big in that, but it's really great to see. And this is what Cunha has said on Michael Carrick. He said he's someone who was a multiple champion with Manchester United as a player. He won the Premier League several times. He was coached by Sir Alex, who is a legend of the sport. He knows what it takes to win here. I believe more than tactical issues, Carrick adds a lot from the side of someone who knows the paths of representing this club. So brilliant words from Cunha then in terms of what Michael Carrick brings. And Cal Kino there, sorry, the football has been counter-attack football. Isn't that what Manchester United is? Isn't that what Manchester United is built upon? Like, Manchester United's DNA, and he's known for completely demolishing teams with quick counter-attacks, quick turnovers. That goal that we saw yesterday is a Manchester United goal. That is what Manchester United's play style over the history has been. I mean, I don't even want to start comparing Sir Alex to Carrick because that's just ridiculous. Sir Alex is in a league of his own. But not everybody has to play Pep Guardiola, dominate the ball type football. Everyone's got different ways of playing. And I think it's not always a negative to say that we're a good counter-attacking team. Yes, we need to be able to break down low blocks. It's something we've got to address. We've got to be able to dominate games. Yes, that is absolutely something we need to be able to do. But being able to be devastating in a counter-attack isn't a negative. But anyway, also just on Benjamin Sesko a little bit as well here. So he's averaging a goal every 164 minutes this season at Manchester United. And, you know, he's just looks like he's sprung to life as of recently. He's talked a little bit about his relationship with Mbeumo, which I think we need to explore. I want to see Sesko up front and Mbeumo supporting him off the right. I do want to see that in the next game. So Sesko has said this: we are understanding each other a lot. There is a lot on the training field where we are working a lot. It's also the way Brian has made a pass for the winning goal because he saw that I was running, he saw that I wanted the ball. And obviously with his quality to make a perfect pass, because it's not easy to do that, to put it directly there where I need it, that's what it's about, to have such quality in the team. Obviously it looks so easy to finish, but because you have so much time, many things are on your mind, but I chose one corner and I went fully for that. As with Carrick, he believes in me, everyone believes in me. The most important thing is to perform no matter what playing time I have. I'm focusing on my performance and trying to help the team. I don't tell myself I absolutely have to be a starter. If I get a few minutes to play, I'll make use of them. The most important thing for me is to enjoy it and perform for the team. So I rate that from Benjamin Sesko. I really like the developing relationship between Sesko and Mbeumo as well. Mbeumo found him with the cross against West Ham for the equaliser. Great finish from Sesko. And Mbeumo again found him with that pass into him for the winning goal against Everton. Brian Mbeumo off the right, his crossing was the best in the league in his last season at Brentford. His crosses were phenomenal. Not only is he an elite goal scorer, he's brilliant at crossing the ball. I think that relationship with Sesko and Mbeumo can really start to develop. Even earlier on in the season, when Sesko nodded it onto Mbeumo when Sanchez got sent off at Old Trafford in that Chelsea game, you can sort of see the relationship taking shape. I like it a lot. I think there's much more to come from that. Both of them have blistering pace, and I think their attributes can work off each other really well. So I think keep an eye on that. I think Sesko and Mbeumo could be a really strong developing relationship and combination for Manchester United's front line massively. Thank you everyone for getting your comments in. Smash a like on the video if you haven't already. Also, just want to bring in this Van der Ven and Diomande talk as well, because it's interesting. It's interesting. I mean, Diomande, I'm all over. I'm all over it. I'm all over it like a Chinese on a Friday night. Honestly, I genuinely would love Diomande at Manchester United. I think he's such an exciting talent. The Van de Ven one, I would absolutely love him at United, but I just don't think United are going to spend big on a centre-back this summer. I'll start with the Van de Ven stuff. So this is what's coming in. Tottenham Hotspur's hierarchy is in a state of panic amid growing fears of relegation from the Premier League and could trigger an exodus of several star players. Sources indicate the board is deeply concerned about retaining key talent should the club suffer the unthinkable and drop to the Championship. Dutch centre-back Micky van de Ven is expected to depart regardless of survival, with the 24-year-old eager for regular Champions League football. Manchester United have joined Liverpool and Real Madrid in showing strong interest in the defender, who has been a standout despite the team's struggles with contract talks between Van de Ven and Spurs being put on hold while the club focuses on battling relegation. So it's coming in from Team Talk that United, Real Madrid and United are showing interest in Van de Ven. I have no doubts Van de Ven is going to want to leave Spurs. I mean, come on. Van de Ven is one of their best players, if not the best player, and he deserves to be playing in the Champions League for his quality. He really, really does. He's a standout player for me. He's an absolutely brilliant centre-back. I think he has the capabilities of being one of the best centre-backs in the league. His pace, his physicality, the way he reads the game, the way he can carry the ball out. I think he's top. I really do think he's top quality. I thought he was pretty poor in the North London derby, but everyone has a poor game and it must be so frustrating playing in a team like that. It must be. And it's not an excuse. But the fact he's still 24 years old, by the way. How good he is at 24 years old is super, super exciting. Even if Spurs get relegated, and I don't think they will, but even if they do, right, he's still going to cost a pretty penny. I still think Spurs are going to want at least 60 million for him. And if they stay up, they're probably going to slap an 80 million price tag on his head. Like, it's a lot of money to be spending on a centre-back. And if you said to me, like, could you imagine, Van de Ven in that United side? I absolutely could. I think he's everything you'd want in a Premier League centre-back. His injury record is slightly concerning. He does get injured. That's what happens when you have a super pacey player. But Spurs do have a big track record for injuries, so maybe there's something in what's going on at Spurs. I don't know. But with Micky van de Ven, as much as I'd rate him as a signing and as much as I think he'd be a great player for any Premier League club, I don't see United doing it because I don't think centre-back is going to be our main priority this summer. I think Maguire will sign another deal. I think Maguire will sign a new deal on reduced wages and maybe quite a short-term one, because I think Maguire showed why he's worth a new contract last night. Look, Van de Ven or Maguire, for the future, obviously you'd want Van de Ven. But Van de Ven's going to cost you a lot of money. Maguire can sign a new contract on reduced wages and we can spend our money elsewhere on the summer on priority positions. What I'm saying is, I don't necessarily think centre-back is going to be a priority position for United in the summer. I think the easy way out for Manchester United is to just sign Harry Maguire up for his leadership, his experience, the fact he's clearly still got a couple more seasons left in him. I think that's what the route they'll go down, rather than going and spending big on that area, because we have Lenny Yoro, we have Aiden Heaven, we have Lisandro Martínez, we have De Ligt. Like, we have got good options at centre-back. And the main bulk of our money, I hope, is going to go on midfield signings, potential fullback signings, and a left winger. That's where I think that the bulk of our money is going to go. So as much as I would want Van de Ven, I don't see United going spending big money on him this summer if he does go. I think he'll go to Liverpool. And to be honest, as much as I don't want to see Liverpool get a player of that quality, I think it's a no-brainer. Canate, question marks over his future. Van Dijk hasn't got a load of years left. He was linked to Liverpool before he went to Spurs. I think he went to Spurs for the game time. Liverpool are clearly going to want a centre-back. They tried to get Mark Gahey. They're going to go for a centre-back. They're probably going to spend big on a centre-back. I think he'll probably go to Liverpool. Someone just wrote in the chat there, Cal Keane, easy way out. Maguire shows no ambition. Don't agree. I think Maguire isn't being signed on a new deal to be a starter for 5 more years. I don't think that'll be the case. I think it's a situation where you can't do everything in one summer. United need to spend big on the midfield, and you would argue we probably need like a left winger with a different sort of dynamic. Centre-back's probably going to be an area we address next season. And if Van de Ven's leaving this season, can you afford to go and take 60, 70 million out of the transfer fund on the midfield and put it on a centre-back. I would love Van de Ven. I agree we need another left-footed centre-back. I do think we do. Martínez, has had injuries. Aiden Heaven is young and developing. I would love to sign someone like Van de Ven at 24 years old with his leadership qualities and everything about his game. But you've got to prioritise, and my priority is the midfield this summer. So that's what I'm thinking on that. And then lastly, with Diomande, moving on to left-sided centre-back to left winger. Manchester United are tracking Yan Diomande, who could cost 80 million plus in the market. Manchester United, Tottenham, Liverpool and Bayern Munich are all interested. And look, and someone just said in the comments as well, we need 2 fullbacks left and right. And I agree with that. I do think we need 2 fullbacks. So that's why Van de Ven, as much as I'd like him, he sort of goes on the back burner. And I'd put my money into the midfield, fullbacks, left wing. And Diomande fits that for me. I know there's quite a big debate right now whether you go down the Ndiaye route, Ndiaye from Everton route or Diomande. And honestly, I think Ndiaye is a brilliant player, a really exciting player. And if we signed him, I wouldn't complain. But if it was up to me, I'd go and sign Yan Diomande. And I know I always say Premier League proven, but we've got some Premier League proven players. Amad's Premier League proven, and Mbeumo's Premier League proven, Cunha's Premier League proven. Diomande, 19 years old, the talent, I think it's worth taking the risk. He's raw, he's pacey, he's super confident. I think he's got attributes that we need in that squad. And I think he can be developed into a top player. So I'd actually go down the Diomande route. And saying it's going to be 80 plus million in the current market, I think Ben Jacobs said on the show last week that he expects that price to come down. If you can get Diomande in for around 60 million at 19 years old with the talent he possesses, I'd probably pull the trigger on that. I think 80 million is a bit high, but I think if we can believe what Ben Jacobs said, which he's been right a lot of times on the channel, I think that price tag will come down. So stay tuned on Thursday. I'll ask him a little bit more about it. But I've watched Diomande. I like the look of him. I like how exciting he is. Yeah, it's frustrating. He said that a lot about Liverpool, I think, on that interview he did a bit ago. But Ekatike was a United fan, and he's gone to Liverpool, and he's smashed it, hasn't he? So things can change very quickly in football when you're a professional football player. So let's see. I would go with Diomande for the left wing. I think he'd be my top target in that position. Plus, you've got the Vivell links. We've got a good relationship with Leipzig. It'll be interesting to see how it develops. But look, on the poll of who should be permanent manager, 53% said Carrick and 47% other. Name them in the comments. And that's the whole debate. Name them in the comments because, like I said, I'm not saying Carrick is absolutely the answer and sign him up on a 5-year deal. But what is the alternative right now that trumps him? Enrique's only the really one that I can say definitely. I think you'd have to go and get him. Everybody else, they also have risks. Carrick has risks, but everyone does, and he's shown he can get points on the board and get us into a really good position in the league. And look, from where we were to where we are now, I think he's absolutely moved us forward, and he's showing some good signs so far. Thank you everyone for getting involved. 50 and Bad says 2-year contract, 2-year bonus, and a chance to test Champions League pressure. I like that from 50 and Bad in the chat. GRHTO says he's been lucky the last 3 games, Sesko bailing him out. It's not lucky. He's used Sesko tactically in the games to make an impression, and he's done it. Like, Sesko 100% gets a lot of credit, but Carrick's made that substitution. Carrick's built up Sesko's confidence. Like, it's a team game. Naveen says, if we spend 100 million on a centre-back, I want Bastoni. Thank you very much for your super chat. Look, you know what to do. Get on the show later on with Goldbridge and ask him to do a debate with me about Michael Carrick. I'd love to do it. And like I said, I'm not leading Carrick should absolutely get the permanent United job, but I definitely think he needs to be considered and he needs to be high up in the list. So thank you everyone for smashing your comments in. Smash a like on the video. Feeling good. 3 points is what matters. And remember everyone, Ben Jacobs and I will be back on the show Thursday at 2 p.m. Get in the comments questions you want me to put to Ben. I'm definitely going to be asking him about the Diomande price tag. I'm going to be asking him about our chances against City for Anderson. Going to be asking him about the Michael Carrick impression and the chance of the permanent job, and loads of other transfer and Manchester United related questions as well. So let me know what your thoughts are on questions to ask Ben. It's a community show. I want you guys to be involved. And then on Sunday, Manchester United versus Crystal Palace. Countdown to kick off at 12 p.m. on the United Stand. Absolutely cannot wait for that one. back at Old Trafford, Crystal Palace should be a win. Let's see how we get on. Sesko should be starting as well. And then Arsenal versus Chelsea, watch along with Goldbridge at 4:30 on Sunday on That's Football. What a banger that's going to be. Can Chelsea take anything off Arsenal? Who do we want to win in that game? Probably Arsenal, don't we? Because Chelsea are sort of on our coattails for Champions League. Look, it's going to be interesting. Thank you everyone for watching. Get your comments in. Have a lovely rest of your day, and I will see you on the next one.